GabuBond used to be the deck to hate, but a little time and a lot of power creep have turned it from a degenerate menace into little more than a rogue darling. And now in every format, there are a couple of mad lads running around, trying to find the secret sauce that will help GabuBond recover a fraction of its former glory. Well, for what's left of BT12, I am that mad lad. And my secret sauce is decidedly fishy. Bad puns aside, I am telling you, Calamari Bond is the way for what's left of BT12 format. Yes, it's engine soup, but I think this build does a much better job of blending together these engines into a much more focused and hyper-aggressive strategy. Starting off with our eggs, we run for Wanyamon because it's the superior blue Digitama in any deck that needs to run a blue Tamer, and GabuBond fits the bill perfectly. This is a consistent draw 1 that'll help us see our combo pieces as soon as possible, so there really isn't any other option here. But sure, run an Upamon for the 5th egg if you really want to. On to the rookies, you will be so surprised to see that they are all Gabumons. BT1 GabuMon, or Drabumon as we love to call him, nets you a draw on play. No, it's nothing earth-shattering, but we need to draw cards, and this deck loves to rookie rush, so it fits in nicely. If you want, you can maybe run this at 3 and tech in 1 copy of the promo Gabumon to fetch some Tamers, but that's really just up to personal preference. EX1 GabuMon is your searcher. Its inheritable checks your top 3 on the swing for a Tamer or a Gabumon. It finds GabuBond, Matt, and even grabs your non-blue Tamers, so I think it's a must at 4, and it's arguably the Gabumon you want to put in raising more often than not. And finally, BT6 GabuMon is our ideal Digivolution target into GabuBond. It does make our Matt Ishidas a bit cheaper, which is nice, but it's a must specifically because it allows GabuBond to swing 3 times. And that extra swing is usually the difference between victory or defeat, so yes, run this at 4. On to the level 4s, we have to talk about Lanamon first. Fresh out of BT12, this card fixes so many of GabuBond's problems. GabuBond decks often run Kumamon and Lobomon because they're 2-cost hybrids, but neither do much to actually advance your win condition. Kumamon's Source Trip is situationally useful, but since GabuBond builds have largely dropped Korikakumon and Sora Joe in effective counts, you're rarely ever freezing anything. So Kumamon basically becomes a vanilla that swings once and then dies in security. Ditto for Lobomon obviously, since he is just a vanilla. Lanamon is indisputably the better hybrid because on Digivolution, she tucks a rookie under any of your blue Digimon and then gains jamming. So what you can do is tuck EX1 GabuMon under her, swing, and get your search, all while getting a free security check. Now your opponent has a body that they need to deal with, or you'll swing again on the next turn, get another search, and potentially live the swing again. You get so much more value off of this than you ever would playing Kumamon or Lobomon, so I think you should be running a playset of this at all times going forward. Alongside Lanamon, I run 2 copies of her beast form, Calmarumon. This is admittedly a slightly janky inclusion, but she still provides surprising utility in the deck. When attacking, Calmarumon can play out a blue level 3 from the sources of any of your Digimon for free, which makes her well worth the steep 3 evo cost, or the 1 evo cost on Lanamon. If you evolve this over the BT1 GabuMon, you can attack and then play the little guy out for a free draw, and then of course you're going to have a new body on board to swing with on the next turn. Or you can use EX1 GabuMon's effect to get the search off and then play it out again for that additional body. Or heck, just play out BT6 GabuMon and threaten to GabuBond on the following turn. You have a ton of options, and if you ever evolve her over a Lanamon that just tucked a source, you'll have that rookie ready to go, and you'll get to swing safely thanks to jamming. This card has come in clutch way more than I thought it would, so I would recommend that you at least try her out. Next, we run 2 Leomons because it's a blocker and Ice Wall on legs. It also lets you get aggressive since it can swing, trigger a searcher inheritable, and if it gets deleted, you draw a card and get back to memory to keep making your plays. And for the last of the level 4s, I run 3 promo Lobomon because it gives us easy access to AncientGarurumon. This card lets you warp into AncientGarurumon for 1, but only when digivolving, so do not evo this in the raising. Now, when you warp this way, the stack does blow itself up at the end of the turn, but as we'll see in a bit, it's usually worth it. And hey, it does have an inheritable to reduce a hard evo into the Ancient by 2, though that's rarely going to come up in this particular build. And if nothing else, it is still a 2-cost evo over a Gabumon in a pinch if you really just need to draw a card. This deck runs a hybrid core, so of course 2 copies of Beowulfmon makes sense as the sole level 5. I was originally running this at 4 and then 3 in testing, but since you don't play that many 2-cost hybrids, its utility is limited. At 2, I find it doesn't clog up the hand and instead acts as an extender and a way to recycle Lanamon while bouncing low-level Digimon. On to the level 6s, we just run 3 copies of AncientGarurumon. This is basically your early game GabuBond, allowing you to warp off of the promo Lobomon and swing twice. It can also unsuspend another hybrid in play, which can come up if you have a little extra memory and a Lanamon in hand. Thanks to the hefty number of Tamers and memory boosting options in the deck, it's not uncommon to have 4 security checks go off in one turn, which can honestly help you win games without ever needing to resort to GabuBond. Now, if you warp into AncientGarurumon, it does delete itself at the end of the turn, but it will replace itself with a level 4 or lower hybrid from the hand. So what I like to do is play out Calamari to ensure a free swing and maybe spawn an additional body on the next turn. And of course, combining its end of turn deletion with Analog Boy can open up some additional routes for play, as we'll see in a bit. The last Digimon we run is the heart and soul of the deck, Gabon Bond of Friendship. You can warp into this off of any Gabumon for a cost of 3 thanks to our dedicated tamer, and when you do, you get a 14,000 DP body that swings at least twice and bottom decks a level 5 or lower Digimon every time it swings. You can clear blockers and swing uncontested, and thanks to the red package in this deck, you can either lethal someone from 4 security or strip a full security stack and then hybrid for game. This is still an absolutely fantastic boss monster, and it embodies the idea of the comeback so marvelously. On to the Tamers, and yeah, we've got a pretty stacked lineup here. First up, we have Matt Ishida, which is the deck's dedicated tamer. This nets you a draw and a memory whenever you promote a Gabumon or Garurumon from raising, and it lets you warp your Gabumons into Bond of Friendship, at the cost admittedly of trashing the top 2 cards of your security. And remember that when you warp into GabuBond, if you have 1 or more security at the time, then the stack will blow itself up at the end of the turn. Matt is the deck's consistency engine, allowing you to cycle quickly and often clinch the extra memory you need to really combo off. Seeing this in multiples can often let you outpace your opponents, and thanks to the fact that he doesn't suspend for either of his effects, you can turn him into a hybrid swing as well. So always play this guy at 4, trust me. I know space can get a little tight in Bond decks sometimes, especially when you're trying to cram in the red package, but if you don't see this or your only copy gets cleared, then you can't go into GabuBond, which is kind of bad in a GabuBond deck. Next up, I run for Davis, which can seem a bit greedy at first, but hear me out. Davis is a memory setter and a searcher all in one, which is obviously valuable in a combo-oriented deck. Now, the reason I've bumped him up to 4 is that all of the deck's big blowout plays require 3 memory at least. Going into Bond costs 3 memory, and ideally you want an extra memory or 2 to enable your finishing plays. Going into AncientGarurumon costs 3 memory, and going into any of your hybrid combos will cost 3 as well. Maxing out Davis means that I consistently see him in my starting hand, and 1 or 2 usually pop out of security as well, ensuring that I never get memory choked and that I can unbrick myself when needed. And of course, if you happen to have multiple in play, that means that you have a tamer that you can very easily turn into a hybrid without having to burn one of your mats. Next up, I run 2 of the Matt and Sora dual tamer. This is mostly here for the red source, but it also nets you an extra memory or 2 when hand counts get high later on in the game. And it has the niche skill to bounce at level 3 when one of your blue or red Digimon unsuspends. You can get that bounce at the start of your turn, or when AncientGarurumon or GABUBOnd do their multi-swings, potentially allowing you to further clean up the opponent's board. One other nice thing about this card is that you can effectively play it for 3 memory, since BT6 GabuBond gains you a memory whenever you play a Tamer with Matt Ishida in its name. 2-cost red tie is here, basically because it's a cheap red source, with the added benefit of applying a 1000 DB buff to all of your Digimon. And a 1 of Analog Youth is our last Tamer. Credit to the guys at Team Icewall for that particular innovation. A 2-cost searcher in such a fast deck is really nice, even if you do have to trash the cards that you don't take. It plays very well with AncientGarurumon, allowing you to get back a memory and hatch a Digi-Egg, potentially stealing the turn back and allowing you to set up for a GabuBond play on the following turn. Hell, it can even save you if GabuBond smashes into a kill spell in security by giving you a little extra memory to potentially swing with a hybrid. Or if your opponent is not in a position to kill you on the next turn, set up for a follow-up GabuBond. As for the option cards, Hammer Spark is a staple in many blue decks, allowing you to stretch your turn or cut the opponent short if it's checked in security. Honestly, I wish I could play this at 4, I was for a little bit, but we just need the space for the Tamers and a few other options, so 3 will suffice in most cases. Blue Memory Boost is a nice way to dig for your combo pieces, especially when we need to find the AncientGarurumon line, since nothing else in the deck searches for it. And hey, it gives you 2 extra memory a little bit later on, notably giving you access to that if it's checked in security, unlike Hammer Spark, which just steals the 2 right then and there. And finally, we play a pair of Lightning Jousts to crank our damage output. With the inclusion of the BT12 hybrids, this card becomes live far more often, allowing you to steal a quick 2 checks alongside Lanamon's jamming, do 4 checks with AncientGarurumon, or strip an entire security stack with GabuBond. This card is so good, and it's the reason I really felt that the deck needed the red package. If you can just manage 1 check early in the game, this allows you to come back with GabuBond at the end and find lethal, assuming you have BT6 GabuBond in your sources, or a hybrid in hand and 2 memory to spare. And that's the deck. GabuBond is very fun, very fast, but at times it is fragile and difficult to pilot. The margin for error is slim since the deck runs no real security bombs or option-based removal. And outside of GabuBond or AncientGarurumon, you can't even really outmuscle your opponent's Digimon. The trade-off, of course, is that you get a deck that will steal games from out of nowhere. As long as you position yourself well and time your attacks, you can take your opponent from 5 security to game over in 1 burst. I mean, seriously, it is a beautiful thing when you can pull it off. So yeah, GabuBond might be getting a little gray around the edges, but I think that this is still a solid list, and in the hands of a good pilot, it can totally blow most tier 2 decks out of the water. And in the hands of a really good pilot, I think you can actually contest a lot of the tier 1 decks as well. Except for Black War Greymon and Beelzemon, but then, you know, you're in good company. But anyway, that'll wrap it up for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you're one of the absolute Giga Chads who's still trying to make GabuBond work in this day and age, then please share your spicy builds in the comments section down below. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an absolutely massive video essay to get back to work on. So I will catch you all in the next one, and until then, peace.